what is it about gardening? I mean, I have a little garden here in Provincetown, which I'm devoted to, and I got into a big kerfuffle today because some construction workers dumped a whole bunch of stuff on it,
Ooh.
and I felt almost as if I had been violated myself. It was a construction site next door. But when I tell people I love to garden, they look at me like I'm out of my mind, and I'm trying to. What is the zen of gardening? As it were, what makes you and what do you enjoy most from gardening?
Well, it is that making of something from nothing. There's the alchemist's, appreciation of that process, that you can make things happen. I remember the first time I grew cannabis. I mean, it was amazing that, you could just take this little seed that was in your little bag of pot, and more would come from it. So there's that. There's something about the nature of the work that I find really agreeable. It's not intellectually demanding, but it's absorbing. And so your mind can wander. It's a great time to daydream. You're very present. You There's a lot of margin of error. You're not gonna, I mean, compared to like carpentry, you're not gonna cut a finger off. I mean, I have gotten a few injuries in the garden with secateurs and, cutting my finger. I have been to the emergency room once or twice. But I just love that meditative rhythm of it, whether you're weeding or planting. Um, and getting your hands in the dirt is just really primal, and we don't do it enough. And they're actually, we know they're good biological reasons to be exposed to all those bacteria and other microbes. So I find a day when I've spent time in the garden is almost always a good day.
And it's sort of a way in which you interact with nature in a way that isn't just
Yeah,
looking at it with a certain amount of awe or appreciating its beauty. It's actually
engaged.
an interface of the human with other things that are growing, and it's not. It has to go through time because it changes and emerges as you do. So it's this very organic interaction between human and plant.
Well, when I first started writing, my first book was was a collection of essays in my garden called Second Nature that I published back in I guess the 90s. And when I started gardening as an adult, I got into this war with a woodchuck or groundhog that, it was, I mean, it's very embarrassing to recollect. People think of me as an environmental writer, but I mean, I got to the point of pouring gasoline down the burrow of this woodchuck and, almost defoliating my property when I threw a match in there. Uh, and it was making this pest was making me absolutely crazy and challenging my sense of dominance as a creature. I had the bigger brain. I had technology. What the fuck was this? Why was this woodchuck getting the better of me and destroying my plants? And I realized, and I was kind of shocked into this realization when I almost did, defoliate a corner of my property, that the garden was a really rich place to examine what we refer to as our relationship with nature, which is a vexed term as it is. I mean, how can we have a relationship to nature? We are nature. We are in
We are
nature,
nature,
but we
yes,
don't feel that way. We feel like we
right.
have one foot in, one foot out, and that the garden might be more valuable as a venue in which to think about nature than the wilderness, which of course is the whole, America has this beautiful tradition of wilderness writing. And we think the only place to think about nature is in the wild. And so we have John Muir and we have, Thoreau and Emerson, and they were all great. Even though Emerson was a gardener, he didn't write about gardening. He wrote about nature, uninflected by humanity. And that spectator model is just really not realistic. We change nature. We have to change nature to survive. It's very important to have wilderness, but we've put aside the 8% of the American landmass we're ever going to put aside. There's not going to be any more wilderness. I know there's this rewilding movement in England, but that's a different thing because you can't actually rewild. And so if we need to engage to feed ourselves, to live on this planet, they're much more complicated questions you have to get into of what is the quality of that engagement, what morality or ethics should guide it. And I realized the garden was a better place to think about that.